Good morning. So, I've got my tea and my Pink Floyd shirt. I never really actually was a big fan of Pink Floyd, but I really like this shirt that one of my old roommates gave me. So, this morning, we're going to have a conversation about pleasure with Mina, and she has the most amazing, sultry, like British accent that I've ever heard from anybody. But she's this amazing woman. And I'm going to read her bio because she sent it to me and it's really cool. So, Mina is an embodiment teacher, artist, and author with a background in professional dance and choreography. She's the creator of Wild Body Wisdom, an online community for women who desire to come into their authentic power via the wisdom of their bodies, create the life of their dreams, and deepen into their sexual and sensual wildness. So I'll just wait for her. Oh, there she is. We will add her in and we can have this conversation. Yay! Waiting for the interwebs to connect. Ooh, hello. Hi!
Hi.
I was just talking about how amazing your like sultry accent and like the timbre of your voice is. I just love it so much.
Oh, thank you. I usually hear that from American people. Like my voice is very normal in the UK, but over there it's like, oh, I love your voice.
So how is your day going?
Um, it's been a really nice day actually today. Really lovely day. Like I had a baby group with my son, and then we went to the park. We had some lunch. I met a friend for some coffee. We had a nice walk. It's been a wonderful day. Yeah, really, really lovely
That's
so far.
awesome.
And I guess you've just woken up where you are, right?
Yeah, I just took my dog for a little walk this morning. So I'm still kind of like, I haven't fully gotten dressed. I have my tea, just like hanging out, listening to podcasts this morning.
Nice. I feel the that whatever that word is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because all of the things like, talking about pleasure, talking about embodiment, talking about pleasure for us like Black women and what that looks like. And yeah, all of the things. So I'd love to hear like your journey with pleasure and reclaiming pleasure and what that has looked like for you.
Mm. That's such a huge question to
Mm-hmm.
start with. I'm like, oh my god, just going straight in, straight in. Let me think now. It's my journey with pleasure has been. I found the relationship to be really diffuse, and I haven't felt like I've always understood what pleasure means for me.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that is self-generative, in a way that is innate, and not external.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know in the past I've had like ways of making myself feel better, which now I don't really, which, you know, are more like mechanisms of self-soothing or numbing.
Mm-hmm.
you know, which have served me, but then at some point they stop serving. Um, and so I think I'm only just now beginning to really understand. And I went to your webinar, which really helped the way you framed pleasure. Um, I think I think it said something like the experience of sensual delight
Mm-hmm.
in that, and when I heard those words and felt those words, I was like, I know what pleasure is actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it, I've not been, it's not been a thing that I have been introduced to, or I've learnt to cultivate, or have valued, or have known that it was important in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as I get older, I see how and why it's so important to. I don't even say it's like learning to remember, remembering that experience of pleasure, and remembering how important those small moments or big
Mm-hmm.
moments are, and what they do for the body in terms of health, vitality, um, belonging in the world, purpose, everything. It's so integral to
Mm-hmm.
living what I would call a joyful and fulfilling life where you feel like you belong on earth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I deeply resonate with that as well, because there's so many different layers of our identities and who we are as beings, and to be able to like look within all of that and to find pleasure like in our beings, like, oh, it feels good to be me in this body alive, and kind of source our pleasure from this integrated whole place inside of us. And it becomes so much more than, like sex or orgasms or these things that are really wonderful, but definitely like fleeting. Um, and to be able to have this much deeper relationship with ourselves that's like based upon goodness and delight, and like who we are is essentially good, and it's okay to be who we are. And then from that place to be able to do things out in the world and to connect with our people. Yeah, I deeply resonate with that.
I love the way you put it. Yeah, who we are is goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that delight bit, actually, I think what I found really helpful, it's, I, I feel like I deepen into my pleasure. Um, the thing about playfulness is really important, actually. So important. And I think I've really found a way in to understand, for me personally, through being playful. It opens up a whole realm that I wasn't necessarily classing as pleasurable before.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had always just associated that word with like sex, or
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, but it's a whole spectrum. I understand now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's there's so many layers, and it can be so expansive, which is really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah. Where how have you been able to like interact with playfulness or like bring more playfulness into your life?
Mm. I think actually I like playfulness is like a default for me. I'm actually
Hmm.
really playful naturally.
I love that.
I just like it's really a core piece of me which I'm very comfortable with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, I think there's an edge for me in terms of bringing playfulness into spaces like this. Actually, and
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to my work, that's where I feel like there's space to expand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like in my personal life, I'm very rarely serious actually. I just yeah, I'm comfortable with being playful. I just didn't realize that this is also a part of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
This realm, um, yeah, there's a way in for me there that I hadn't realized.
Yeah, I love that. Um, And I love that it comes so naturally to you, like playfulness, and that's such a function of who you are as a person. Has that always been, have you always felt like welcomed and honored to be playful in spaces?
I think generally yes, actually. If it's more like a professional thing or a work thing, then I've been a bit like, ooh, how
Mm-hmm.
people kind of want you to be serious, which can be a bummer sometimes.
True story.
um, yeah, I guess the thing is how to say it. So I feel like I don't necessarily take myself seriously, but I take what I do seriously, and
Mm-hmm.
I I possibly part of the reason I approach life this way is because I am a black woman, and
Mm-hmm.
generally what I grew up seeing was just really serious, sort of like what's the word, survival
Mm-hmm.
survivalist, um, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very regal, regal, in a way, but in a way that didn't feel necessarily like authentic, but it felt like it was a way of being a black woman that you could be accepted if you were like, there's certain ways of being
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
And what I didn't see was just like playful, spontaneous, joyful, trusting in
Mm.
life black women. So I think
Yeah.
somewhere I've just sort of decided to expand into that and be what I haven't really seen. I think as part
Yeah.
of, people call it like resistance. I guess you could call it that. And it wasn't conscious, but I think innately it's part of me. But also I am aware that that's the kind of medicine that I can share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Mm.
totally hear that. I think, yeah, I hate those like stereotypes, like those ways of being that I think everyone kind of gets pigeonholed into. And
Mm.
one of the ways, um, I don't know if you can resonate with this as well, but one of the stereotypes that I heard about and like seeing grown up, like this is what it means to be a black woman, is to be like really confident and really bold and really like have a big presence, have a big voice. And then some people, like find they classify that as being more aggressive, of being more angry. And
Mm.
that has never been like my nature. Like I'm definitely like a quiet, like a calm, like chill, laid back person. And so I always felt that pressure of like to be a black woman, I had to be all of these other things. That's like not authentic to who I am as a person. And
Mm.
it wasn't until like growing up and realizing like that's a stereotype and like that's a trope that I'm like trying to live up to. That's like not true at all because, like there's so many different ways of being. There's so many different ways to be as a black woman, and that's what is like life and like humanity and diversity and all of these things. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I resonate. I totally resonate. It's like you see what, yeah, I guess they say, you can't be what you can't see.
Mm,
And when you see yourself reflected in certain ways, you feel like you have to
mhm.
be those things somehow.
Yeah.
Then you kind of reject, or you don't explore other parts of yourself. Then they're sort of like repressed maybe, or unconscious, or in the background, and you're not able to have clarity. You feel like you can't bring your full self forwards because
Hmm.
you're kind of trying to be these bits, and it doesn't feel safe for you to be your full self and be accepted in spaces.
Right. Yeah. What has your journey been like to find that safety to be more of your full self?
Ooh, another massive question. Just throwing out all the questions. Laura just throwing out questions straight in. Questions.
This is what I do.
I know now. No, great. Let's get into it. It's a lifelong journey for sure for me. The general thing for me has been, I've always been a bit like, I think my parents thought I was a little bit strange, a bit odd.
Mm-hmm.
I was a bit more creative, and I didn't really want to wear dresses, or I wasn't that sort of typical girl that they wanted, So I've always been a little bit odd. So I've kind of grown up thinking I was a bit strange. So I had that from my parents, and then not really seeing myself reflected, or not feeling like I fit anywhere. Maybe everyone has this in some sense, but this was my personal journey. And so, sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, just whatever you want to share around finding safety and yeah, like just being able to reclaim more of who you are in the world.
That was it. I'm going to blame baby brain.
Yeah.
It's not really baby brain, but I'm going to blame baby brain. Claiming safety, yeah. I guess claiming safety. I've done a lot of sort of embodiment work. I would say embodiment work is the short answer. I did some plant medicine, which really helped. Doing the plant medicine and coming into grief, actually, which really helped take my range of myself and how I saw myself in terms of like emotionality, and it kind of, I guess they say it expanded me. It kind of opened me up, opened my heart more. I feel like a whole new realm of me kind of was birthed during that plant medicine experience. And then what's actually been really helpful is having other Black women around me, creating a space where I can just say whatever I want, be whatever I want, do whatever I want. That has also been really, really useful. Because I have a group now. It's just 2 other Black women, but we are full out. There's no censoring. There's no, and just knowing that you can be received, whether you're a mess, whatever you're talking about, do you know what I mean? That no part of you is so healing, so healing. And for me, for a long time, I felt quite distant from other Black women. I sort of had sisterhood wounds. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
For a long time, because I just didn't resonate, and I felt, I think, like you said, I never felt like I was that kind of aggressive or kind of that stereotype, and I wasn't doing, enough social justice work, or I wasn't doing enough this or enough that, or da. And so I kind of felt distanced. So like coming together with other Black women who I feel are like me has been so healing on so many levels, and just being able to be received fully, like really fully, by other people, and knowing that I'm not wrong, or I'm not bad, or and one of the things I had was that I'm not coherent. People don't understand what I mean. This was something I had in my head, but now when I speak, it's like people are like, yeah, I understand you, and I'm like, wow, you actually understand what I mean. So yeah, just having every facet of my being be received, creating spaces for that has really helped to expand my sense of safety.
Oh man, yeah. There's so many things about like grief and what happens when you allow yourself to go through the grieving process, and then that's so beautiful, like allowing yourself to be received. I don't know if I can find it right now, but I wrote down in my journal a couple of days ago about I was listening to this creative guy talk about like how you can figure out what your creative flavor is. So like in any sort of like creative work, it's like how do you figure out what you offer that's like uniquely your own. And I don't know if I can find it right now, but he was just talking about um, I'll have to go from my, oh yeah. So he was talking about with like food and being able to like how you cultivate your taste when it comes to food is like how much of the sensation or how much of the taste that you can receive. And I wrote that down in my journal because it just like this bomb went off in my brain and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true about pleasure as well. Like it's about how much of the sensation that you can receive is directly correlated to how pleasurable the experience is for you. And you know, like on the window of tolerance, like within your window of tolerance, because like outside of that it's like pain, but within your window of tolerance and expanding your window of tolerance expands your ability to like be able to receive pleasure. And I just love what you said about like being received by other people. That is not something that like I was taught to do. You know, like I definitely learned early on about like the need to give and the need to be there for other people, but not how to like receive love or how to receive myself in spaces where other people are there to support me.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Just you saying that, it's like, yeah, yes. There's so much in that. There's so much in that. But the fact that it's like we somehow we have to learn to receive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, wow, like why does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, having to relearn or learn to receive. It's like, I've noticed that it's little things. I guess it's things like someone gives you a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to just not bat it away or distract or deflect or just actually taking that in and allowing it to sort of bathe through you
Mm-hmm.
and feel the receive that fully.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole thing. And I think as women, maybe as people, we're just not used to it, not used
Mm-hmm.
to receiving that kind of open-hearted, open body to life type of receiving. It's not something that we're taught.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like I think of babies, like you have a little one running around
Mm.
there.
Yeah.
They seem like they can receive really, really well because like their survival depends on it. It's like you have to do absolutely everything for that little one until they, are on that journey of independence and gaining,
Mm.
learning the skills of what it means to be human. And I don't know, I'd really have to think about like different points along my journey of when I either closed my heart to receiving or it wasn't safe to receive. And I think there's so many elements in the world, especially like for women, but particularly for Black women, where it's not safe. And to be like, we can't be in a receptive state if it's not safe to like exist as a human in the world. There's so many ways that it's not safe. And so I love that you have cultivated this little space with two other Black women where it is safe and safe to just like be and to like show up as you are and to learn how to receive in that place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's been really transformative, actually. Really, really transformative just having that space. I can't think of another space like it, actually.
Hmm.
You know? Yeah.
What has it been for you? Like, what tips do you have about cultivating those spaces of safety? Because I think you exude this like peace and like safety from your being. But I'm just curious about what you've learned, like in your training and in the things about cultivating those spaces of safety.
Mm. Um, well, I guess firstly, there is an element of like accepting yourself, like really accepting yourself, and like wholeheartedly as well, not just the good bits or the bits, just in each and every day, like every day I'll say something that I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then I'm like, well, said it now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before I would have like chastised myself for like the whole
Yeah.
like, shame. What do they call it? Like cringe. Like you know what I mean? Like the cringe. And now like I'm human, and sometimes things come out.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it can be an exercise in how much can I, for me, like not self censor, because sometimes
Mm.
I'll say stuff which is a bit like, and I know it's a bit like, but for my personal journey, it's quite important for me to say things, and then just like slowly push my edges.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think first of all, it comes to that self acceptance, um, and knowing that who you are is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are is beautiful, and actually, the I feel the more into wholeness I come, the more I make sense, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, you're more complex. You're much more. Yeah, I'm enjoying that journey of coming to wholeness and allowing myself to be seen in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be scary still. There is some, fear, but I'm learning to just slowly do it because I'm seeing why it's a good thing to do and how I'm feeling as I'm doing it is really sort of
Yeah.
taking me of self acceptance and self love. The more I'm doing that, and then having capacity to do that as well. So I'd say healing work, embodiment work, somatic experience sessions have been really useful for me. Doing the non-linear movement practice has been really, really, really beneficial for me,
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, it's just allowing your body to open up and move through, and your nervous system to become more spacious, so you can
Mm-hmm.
allow yourself to be in these experiences, of high sensation, or you slowly open that window of tolerance you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that self trust as well, and knowing as well, and trusting that if you don't like something, it's okay. You don't have to keep
Mm-hmm.
forcing yourself to
Mm-hmm.
like be somewhere or do something you don't want to do. So finding that yes and no is really, really important,
Mm-hmm.
just in all facets of life. So then you learn to trust your instinct because it takes you on, it takes you it takes you to where you're feeling good. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Um, and then picking and choosing people that you love, picking and choosing, you find your people, the more you become into yourself, you find those people who can then hold you and reflect you. And then you have those spaces. So there's a lot of self work involved,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and a lot of trust, you know, that feeling good and in alignment is going to show you where you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then from that place, I guess it's like once you've come into more of your wholeness, you start sort of like shining yourself out, and then yourself is reflected to you in other people. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I definitely resonate with like the journey and the process of coming into self-compassion and self-acceptance, and like how difficult that can be, but also like so game changing when you start to like look at those parts of you that have been like wreaking havoc on your life, and to like see their function, and to like accept them as like these integral parts of you, and to like begin to dialogue. I have one of my friends like gave me, she like trained me in this process of being able to hold and to like see and to ask like these younger parts of myself like what resources they need, and then imagine like giving them the things that they needed at the moment of like trauma or difficulty or whatever. And I was doing that process like last night and this morning, and it was so amazing to like walk with my dog this morning and to feel these parts of me, like my 8-year-old self and my 10-year-old self, and to feel them with me in a way that was like supportive and nurturing, and not like, you know, they were trying to run the show because they were upset and they had needs that didn't get met, and they were trying to get my attention, which has been a lot of my experience. It's like that anxious feeling on the inside, and it's like this part of me that's trying to get my attention. So it was like so beautiful to like just feel like that feeling of settledness, like these parts are with me and we're kind of like starting to go all in the same direction, versus like, you know, different things taking over, different feelings or sensations taking over. um
Yeah,
so that was a long tangent,
yeah.
but yes.
Yeah. I totally feel that. I totally feel. And it's like you say, like these parts of us. What's the word? They're just like they're all beautiful. They're just in a kind of extreme version of themselves. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like once you kind of start to dialogue with them, they just smooth out and they become like a really beautiful part of your guidance system rather than like
Mm-hmm.
hitting you over the head.
Right, yeah, yeah. There's a question here I've never. Oh, oh, and it just pops up. Can you see it on your end? I've never done
Yeah.
this before. Oh, beautiful. Can you speak more about your embodiment and somatic movement practices?
Oh. Um, do you want to go? Do you want to go first? I want to hear about your practices.
Yeah, embodiment and somatic practices. So I love doing a lot of work on like reconnecting, kind of like the beginning stages of helping people to feel safe to like connect to their bodies, which I do a lot in trauma work. So a lot of like starting from the outside in, um, is what I've learned for people who haven't felt safe to be in their bodies. So it's like starting by feeling your feet on the ground and feeling your seat in the chair and orienting yourself in your space, and then moving to like, what sensations are you noticing? Um, where is your body oriented in space? How does that, what is your relationship to those sensations? Are you judging yourself? Do you have narratives around that? And like helping people to be objective observers of themselves. And that's been a lot of the work that I do. And then I also like take people outside in nature, and so there's also this reciprocal relationship with nature, like how is your internal world being reflected outside? What kind of sensations are you noticing being in an outdoor space, and how does that like change moment to moment? So stuff like that is what I do.
Lovely. As you were speaking, my body was like, just starting to like settle and sort of like, yeah. My
Mm-hmm.
body was enjoying what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
What about you?
Yeah. So I started off, I've always been a dancer.
Mm.
So you as well?
Mm-mm. No, I
Oh,
just remembered that about your story.
yeah, yeah. So I've always been a dancer. I think looking back, that was my body's way of an outlet. It was the part of my start of my embodiment journey really. From very small, I used to dance with my dad, actually, um, and so I went that path, and I started as a hobby, and then I trained as a professional dancer and choreographer. Um, and so for me, dance was the way in, and then but then the industry part of it's kind of burned me out a bit, and it was very very structured, training every day, very like
Mhm.
quite brutal. Um, but so dance is one thing that I find useful in some way, and I think a lot of people, they think dance is helps you be more embodied, and it
Mm.
can, but it
Mhm.
depends how you do it. You know, it
Mhm.
depends what's going on inside as you're moving. So there's so many different layers. But dance can be one way, and I do dance a lot. More these days for that pleasurable, for that delight, for that kind of, we haven't even got language for it, but you know, to cultivate my sense of self
Mhm.
as well. Um, and then the non-linear movement practice, which I do every day, and I also teach, that has been integral. That's through taking me on a journey of being able to deal with my emotions
Mm.
day to day. It's a day to day practice. So I do that every day, most days, should I say. Non-linear movement, dance, and then it's things like, you know, as you say, go into nature and just, for me personally, the open body is where I'm trying to sort of like go move more towards. So being in nature and just allowing myself to be more transparent,
Mm.
um, with what's outside. Um, for me, that's really useful. But I'm at a part of my journey where I'm able to, I would say, this is a journey. So uh, yeah, it's more like more of a coming towards an advanced practice to do this sort of thing,
Mhm.
because you have to really trust yourself. You have to feel safe. You have to know
Yeah.
what you're letting in, and do you know what I mean? Because so I'll caveat that by saying that, but that's what I do. I find that more and more useful in opening my body. Um, yeah, but that's after many years of dance and non-linear movement. And then I've done healing sessions and sexual, you know, breath work and
Mhm.
womb work and plant medicine. And so all of these things can be really useful
Mhm.
depending on where you are in your journey, what you feel you need. And also, I would, one thing I would say is maybe stepping, I used to be very much about catharsis,
Mm.
whereas now I'm kind of like moving away from that, because I found I was getting a bit what's the word, things that were too extreme. I was very
Mm.
habituated to
Mm.
extreme sensation,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and so moving away from that, which is the non-movement practice, is really useful for that, because it's very very subtle, very gentle, and you
Mhm.
can then expand your spectrum of what you can feel. And it's not just on the extreme end. It's like you suddenly be able to feel really subtle things. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I would say I'm doing.
Yeah, I really resonate with that because like earlier on in my journey, I had it was all about like having these like big trauma releases or these big emotional releases and then
Mm-hmm.
realizing that because I was outside of my window of tolerance that it actually wasn't integrating or healing, and having to learn how to like come back and be in relationship with my body and being within like the boundaries that my body is telling me and like, oh, like this is where healing happens, like in incremental, like in safe, like small changes versus like having these big huge like, like whatever trauma releases.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, totally resonate with. I know exactly what you mean. I was the same. Maybe it's part of
Mhm.
the journey. I don't know, but I was the
I don't
same.
know. Yeah.
I was the same when I started doing this stuff as well. And you think that's where it's at. You got to push and da 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 because you
Yeah.
feel something. And then you kind of, yeah, then I sort of realized that um, it maybe wasn't the way to go after some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the open body, and I've never heard that term before, so I was just wondering if you could explain it a little bit.
Oh, okay. I just sort of made it up, just put two words together. um, I kind of, there's the question is on my thing, and I don't know. What can you see the question still?
Hmm.
Okay. Um, for me, I have been quite shut down. Yeah, I've been quite shut down in my body, um, sexually, sensually. That wasn't something that sensuality wasn't something that was really um, was I wasn't connected with it, and I guess there's something to do with like my mother and being in survival and being an immigrant and having to work many jobs and not her never resting, her not necessarily being in pleasure, and it's all just generational things. And so I was like, my body was quite like that, and
Mm.
so for me a journey of really relaxing that and being more, it's like a sense of transparency in the skin. This is how I feel it anyway, and just being much more like feeling more translucent in the world
Mm.
and allowing things in and
Mm.
permeating. Um, yeah, that's kind of how I mean it when I say open body. That's what I'm kind of talking about.
Hmm.
For me particularly, that has been useful for where I'm at. Yeah.
Is that like being able to feel and sense energies, or like noticing how your body responds to like stimuli and that kind of stuff, like a sensory experience? Or how do you, if you can explain it, like how does that transparency happen?
Um, it part of it is sensory. Part of it is, yeah, it is sensory. I think the senses are a way in
Mhm.
to what I'm talking about. Um, and I also experience it energetically, yeah, for sure. Um, and then it's also a sense of like settling into the world, maybe like allowing myself to just
Mm.
um, and almost like become a tree or become a river or become these part of nature. um,
Hmm.
it's like a practice that I like to do, and I find it really grounding for my nervous system and settling as well. uh, and then it helps, sexually, sensually, in relating, in functioning. I find it really useful in all facets of my life. So yeah, the senses are part of it, but it's also I kind of got the words for it, but it's, yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, shall we say?
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Kind of.
Yeah. The imagery that you used, I think I've only experienced this a few times in my life, and it's been kind of like spontaneous, and so I love that you have a practice. But I guess when I hear you say that, I feel this experience of like oneness with other things, and
Mm.
um being able to like lose like self-consciousness, almost like lose some of that like I am me-ness, but like I'm participating in this dance and we're kind of like we're made up of all the same stuff and there's this exchange happening. I don't know, like I
Yes,
don't know if
yes,
that's
yes. That is the way you explained it. Yeah, there is that happening for sure. There is that happening, and I think what I'll say is, as a woman, as a black woman, like I think one of the things that I've noticed is that often we sort of give ourselves over
mm,
to, whether it's people, power structures,
mm,
uh, we're kind of like there's a element of I must bow down, I must fit in, I must, to be
mm-hmm,
safe. Um, and there I have that understanding and knowing that there's a pattern there. So when I'm talking about this practice, it's not a giving over of myself in a way of
mm-hmm,
losing myself.
mm-hmm.
It's like a dance, as a way of coming to like a wholeness and a centeredness and alignment as
Mm,
myself on the planet, as part
yeah,
of the whole.
yeah, okay, yeah,
If that makes, yeah, I just wanted to put that out
yeah.
there.
I
Um,
appreciate that distinction.
yeah, just because I think it's kind of an advanced practice because of all these other, part of where
Mm-hmm,
the journey has taken me and where I'm at on the journey. I can distinguish and I can, notice these things,
mm-hmm,
and still feel like I can keep my meanness, but
mm-hmm.
and I do matter, but I also don't matter. No, like there's
Right.
it's very complex, but at the center of it, you have your center still, even as you do all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I had heard this conversation, and for the life of me, I can't remember the two people having the conversation right now, but it was an interview, and there was this, I think he was like a pastor, like a Wesleyan pastor or something, and he was talking
Mm,
about kind of this aspect of we're all part of this like larger story, and we also have like the story that we're living, and a lot of times we're taught that like in religious spaces and culture, racism, white supremacy, all of these structures, that there's this larger story that's like dominating and consuming our small story. But he's
mm,
like, to be able to like hold and honor your story and see where it fits in with the context of the larger story, and it still matters and it's still important. And I love like what you said, because it's like being able to still be centered in your meanness, but then
mm,
participate in this like the larger largeness of everything else, and to be able to
mm,
find context and meaning for your story. And like maybe it doesn't, when you look at the largeness of all of time, like my little story is not even going to be a little blip on anything, but it still has this importance because it's the story that I'm living.
beautiful. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that complexity, and that, like, I love living in that complexity, and knowing that has been brought me a lot of peace, and allowed me to function in a way that I feel is useful and pleasurable, and, yeah, just makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel good. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I love the complexity and living in that complexity, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I think what's the piece of that is this it's that compassion piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's that heart opening piece that really allowed me to come into this kind of a knowing, and just that plant medicine session, the grief, and then the heart opening experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. There was a question a little bit earlier from Jill, and she said, how do you teach that? So, like, how do you teach this open body practice? Or how, like, what steps would someone need to go on in order to be able to get there?
Um, I'm kind of a bit hesitant to say actually. I think it's quite an advanced practice, and without knowing
Mm-hmm.
someone's like history, um, I don't know. But what you could really easily do is just go into the forest or a park and just put your feet on the ground, soles of your feet in the
Mm-hmm.
ground, be with trees, and just breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really safe bet, is just to start, just to breathe, be with what is, be with your
Mm-hmm.
environment, and just allow yourself to settle really and come into concert with your surroundings. You can't
Mm-hmm.
go too far wrong just starting there.
Mm-hmm.
Say. And then the non-linear movement practice that I teach, that is a very um, useful practice to start off with because it's very gentle, and it will show you where your contractions are, um, and it will allow you to learn how to track yourself in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's safe. Um, yeah, I think someone's saying it's okay if it's not comfortable. Um, yeah, it is okay, but it's just about being safe. Because
Mm-hmm.
some people feel comfortable in being extreme all the time, and that can
Mm-hmm.
be habitual. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just, yeah, I want to caveat things, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
expanding the spectrum of what you can feel. So for someone else, what I'm talking about might not be a good practice to do or a safe practice to do. So that's
Right.
why I don't want to just put it out there on Instagram live. I
Right.
don't know people's history with their body. Um,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? But yeah, just putting your feet in the soil, breathing is a good start, is what I would say.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Well, I really appreciate your time today that you reached out and you wanted to hop on. Um, I have been asking people what they would tell their 12-year-old self about pleasure, about embodiment. So I'd love to hear your answer.
Oh my God, 12-year-old self. I would tell my 12-year-old self that I would say, your body is beautiful, your how you feel is beautiful. It's actually your guidance system, and um, having emotions is great. Here's how you can get in touch with them more. Um, and I would give her a big hug and tell her that she's loved.
Mm, mm, yeah, that's beautiful. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So what projects are you working on now? Where can people find you? Do nonlinear movement with you? What does that look like?
Um, so the best thing to do, I have a free 10-minute nonlinear movement practice class people can do. If they head over to my Instagram account, link in bio, you can just sign up and grab the 10-minute class.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, I explain how to do it, how to set up. There's also a somatic meditation and a 10-minute class. Um, and then I am working on some things behind the scenes, and then I'll be sharing them with my list once they're ready. So the best thing is sign up to my list, and that's where I share all my good things.
Beautiful. Is that on
Yeah.
your website?
Yes, you can go to www.mina wildbodywisdom.co.uk
Okay.
for a website. And then also
Awesome.
in my Instagram link in bio, you just click free 10-minute class and it'll take you to the sign up page. And then you can also sign up there. So either on Instagram or on my website.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Yay.
Well, thank you. This has been so lovely.
Thank
I feel like
you.
so calm and like, ready to go out and be in nature and put my feet in the ground now.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm glad. Thank you for having me on. I was getting a call to sort of like say, I feel like I should do an Instagram live with Lauren. I think it would be really,
Yes.
really great. So I'm glad that I actually sent the message and we made it happen. It's been such a great conversation. I just love how
Yeah,
flowful it's felt and authentic and just sharing. And it's been really lovely. So thanks for having me.
absolutely. Yeah. And
Mm.
thank you all for joining us and asking questions and being involved in the conversation. And let us know if you have further questions, if there are ways that we can help. I know we're available in like DMs and all that stuff. So have a lovely day and let's do this again.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye.
Bye.